Okay, hello everyone. In this video, we'll go over PSA 7. Hopefully, it's gonna clear some of your questions while you're working on this assignment. Um, in this assignment, there are three components you have to do. There is this part 0, where we're gonna revisit picture flipping, like what we have done in PSA 4. And then we'll play with sound. For part A, we'll try to piece up two sounds together. For part B, we'll create a sound palindrome. So if you look at it, the starter files, we will need 4 starter files. The first one, PSA 7 picture tester, is primarily for part 0. And then for part A and part B, we'll need 7a.java, 7b.java, as well as sound.java. So the last 3 files are primarily for part A and part B. Okay, let's look at part 0. In part 0, you'll be flipping part of an image, and we're gonna flip in a very similar way like what you did in PSA 4. So you will ask the user to first pick an image and then show the image. If you look at the starter code, the first 2 lines basically does that task. And then the second thing you have to do is, if you look at the instruction, you have to flip a set of squares 3 times. So in other words, you will ask the user, please give me an x and y as well as the size. That will specify a square inside the image. So you will see x and y as well as the size. So you will ask user, please give me x, give me y, and give me size. If the square specified by the 3 parameters is inbound of the original image, so if you imagine the black rectangle here is the original image, and the user just specified this red square using x, y, and the size, then this square is good. So you will flip this square horizontally. Okay. And altogether, you need to basically ask user for another set of x, y, and square. So basically, this is the goal. You will try to ask user to give you 3 pairs of x, y, and size. Not 3 pairs, 3 triplets of x, y, and size, and then flip those 3 squares. But the user may give you wrong values. In other words, the user may give you x, y, as well as the size that will specify a square like this. And as you can see, this square region is out of bound. So this is out of bound. So in other words, if the user gives you something like this, you need to force the user to give you the correct value. Okay. So if you look at the instruction, altogether, you have to flip 3 times horizontally on 3 squares. But if the user give you the wrong value, you need to use a loop to make sure the user keep entering x, y, and size until the x, y, and the size specify a square that is inbound. Then you flip it. Okay. So this is step number 2. Step number 3 is very similar. Instead of doing horizontal flips, you're gonna do vertical flips. And again, you have to flip 3 times on 3 appropriate squares. If the user give you out of bound squares, you need to force the user to give you the correct square. Then you flip them. Okay. One recommendation that I want to offer is, if you lost any points on PSA 4, make sure you understand why you made those mistakes. And definitely, you don't want to have those errors where you flip the square that has off by 1 or off by 2 errors. What that really means is, for example, if you want to flip this square in here, so if you want to flip this square in here, and visually you can examine, okay, the square got flipped either horizontally or vertically, everything looks good, but it is possible that the square you flipped is off by 1. In other words, you may have chosen the wrong center point. So this is a possibility, right? So if you pick the wrong center point, you may just be off by 1 or by 2, and visually you can't see the difference. Okay, so you need to write possibly a tester script to make sure that you flip the square correctly. Okay, and if you make any mistake on PSA 4, if you lost any points, make sure you correct them. And if you have trouble finding out why your flipping is off in PSA 4, definitely talk to a tutor or go to the office hours of TAs or your instructor and make sure you clear that out. Okay. The other thing that we haven't done before is ask user input via the console. So the way we can do that is through something called a scanner. A scanner is a class, and you can create a scanner object. If you look at this line, a reader is a scanner object, and what you do is you're gonna read user input from system.in, which primarily is the keyboard. So you want to ask user to type in something, and the way you can ask user to give you something is you first offer a prompt. Basically, you tell the user, please give me something, and you tell the user what you are expecting. So you are expecting an X, Y, as well as the size. So we'll ask user, please give me X, Y first. Then you can say X equals to reader dot next int. It means I want to read an integer from the keyboard. Similarly, another integer for Y. So the user can just enter, for example, 70, a space, 80, enter. What's going to happen is 70 will be read into X and 80 will be read into Y. Okay, and then you can ask the user to give you the size of the box. Similarly, you can say reader.nextInt. If the user enters 45 for the size, basically that 45 will be read into size. Okay. So the starter file gives you some sense of how to create a scanner and how to use it. Okay. You can kind of just borrow the idea from here and try to write your own input and output. So all you need to do is to create a single scanner, okay, and then reuse this scanner throughout the entire program. So roughly speaking, you can just create a scanner like right in here, right? And then whatever you do, whenever you need to read something from the user, you can just use this scanner object to do all the readings. Okay. So this is part 0, and the grading is listed in there. Okay, and also we have put in a sample input output. So in here, you will basically ask user, okay, please give me the XY as well as the size, assuming the width and the height of the original image is 250 by 225. If the user give you a value of XY as 100, and then the size of the box to be flipped is 50, then you're gonna do a horizontal flipping on that square. Okay, and the user may say, your program will prompt the user again, please give me XY as well as the size. If this is what the user enters, as you can see, well, part of the box will be out of bound. So your program should display an error message and then prompt again. And if the user give you this, again, the input is wrong. So an error message, enter again. And this time, the user give you this set of parameters, and in fact, it is good for the square to be inbound, so you flip again. And this process will continue until you have successfully flipped horizontally 3 times. Okay. And then you will ask user for XY as well as the size for the vertical flip. And the idea is very, very similar. So you repeat this process until you have successfully flipped 3 squares vertically. Okay, then your program will just be done. This is the end of part 0.